Pleasure, sir. Cheers.
All right. Live on Facebook. Here we go.
Let's thank the woman of the house who was delaying our dinner till 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to be a part of this.
Just for this. Hey, I can't wait till we have our little duo date.
Together, yeah. Got our group get together.
It's gonna be awesome.
Hello, Wendy. Hello, Debbie. Thank you for joining us. You'll find the chat bar on the left side. I'm going to type right now. Hello. That we may interact. Ellie, welcome.
All right, going live to Facebook in 5 seconds.
All righty. We have to lock the screen so it's on you or Stephanie to start, so it doesn't keep taking over the speaker view.
Yeah, I got to turn you. I'm sorry, I should have added you as. You're already co-host, right? Let's see, make you co-host. Boom. There we go. You're co-host, and Joseph should be up there too. Let's see.
Hello, Debbie. Hello, Wendy. Thank you for scribing in.
Do you have my worksheet? I think I failed you.
No.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Joseph.
So right now I'm sharing the Facebook live feed to my private page, the groups, wherever I can right now.
I appreciate that. So you did see it come up? Good. So I got a notification. Good, because I didn't. Normally at the beginning of these calls, I have to quickly just get the people who say, I can't find the password. And the funny thing is I haven't changed it yet since April 3rd. Oh, yeah. Well,
So another thing to know, remember I told you, the link itself contains the password. And hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
no, isn't that's silly. When you told me that, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's there.
My speakers, I see Tasha and all the rest of them. I want to speak to you all later. I just talked to my sergeant major, and he told me some gripping stories about what he's been dealing with over the last couple of days. It's last couple of weeks, rather. Just he's just an amazing person, but his stories of resilience, I think that you'll love what he has to say in the perspective of the military. All right, coming. All right. Okay, Steve, let's go ahead and, because we're at 7 p.m. My infamous co-host, Joseph, you're going to manage Facebook and everything else, and Steve, you're going to manage this Zoom room. So go ahead, and why don't you get everyone settled?
Well, okay. Let me just get everything in front of me. There we are. I am spot lit. I apologize for having to look at me all. It is late in the evening here on a Monday night, but you have to deal with the aesthetic. So thank you for joining us for this special edition of Project Hope Academy. I'm Steve, co-host. You'll be hearing from Stephanie very often as moderator, and Ken, and an incredible group of speakers tonight. If you go to the arrow next to your video and audio on the bottom left-hand screen of the computer, you've got some controls like enabling HD and touching up your appearance. What matters is that if you are sharing screen because you had done a Zoom earlier today, you want to make sure that you stop that so that your screen doesn't populate ours. Also, ask your quarantine or all the residents at your location, regardless of world health circumstances. Remind yourself as well to disengage all other devices and services that have the potential to interfere with Wi-Fi during the webinar. You come on muted automatically, and please keep yourself muted until the end of our time together, or when we ask you to play some call and response, or we open up for questions if you can. Remember, although you've all joined us to be inspired, you inspire we, the speakers, to be our best selves. And we're going to be looking for as much positivity and support for the subject and circumstances we're going to be discussing tonight. So please, if you experience some unexpected magic, something resonates with you that has a positive flair to it, a lesson to be learned or something to share, please feel free to type it in the chat bar. Also, we humbly request that you introduce yourself and where you're from in chat, because we'd love to honor your presence. Thank you so much for listening to this. And now I lean it back to Ken and Stephanie to continue on with our evening.
Thank you.
So thanks, Steve. Let's just go ahead and start this out with a moment of silence to open the meeting. For those of us hearing these live or later recorded messages, I'd like to ask you to listen with an open heart and an open mind. You may hear things you find disturbing. I'll ask you to get curious about what you've heard. Get curious about your own feelings. Let the uncomfortable tension that you may feel produce positive action in your own life, your own community, and sphere of influence. If you allow for it, the tension can result in a pearl. Don't shy away from discomfort. Change is nearly always uncomfortable. As Dr. Brene Brown says, learning is hard, unlearning is harder. Pretending that most of us don't need to do either when it comes to racism is its own form of violence. I'll ask you to reevaluate the way you communicate on this and related topics to both our speakers and toward others in the community, in your community. Please lean in with the intentions of hearing for the sake of listening and not with the intentions of formulating your next thought, question, or sharing your own story. We encourage each speaker to share openly about his or her experiences. This is a safe place to share your experiences without being judged. We accept what the speakers say without comment because it is true for them. We allow them to feel their feelings in peace. And I'll give it back to you, Steve.
Great. Well, this is a night of celebrating some of our common ground, and we're really excited to furnish this panel of speakers for you who are going to give some perspective that you may not have, that you may have not heard, that you don't have the opportunity to be exposed to, and we're very proud of the fact that we're all going to have this time together, and helping everyone endure is what we're all about from day one when Ken and Stephanie created this program. Every webinar has been focused on that. This one just has a slightly specific shift. And I don't know if you can hear, but as we speak, there is an entire brigade of thousands of people out my window marching up First Avenue right now on their way to Gracie Mansion, currently defying the curfew in a peaceful protest. This is the state of affairs that we're in. It's a double whammy. We are dealing with different levels of general or specific community quarantine, enhanced community quarantine, as Sergeant Ken, the military say, ECQ. And at the same time, some civil issues that we are focusing on that have a long dated history here in America and around the world. So we thank you for showing up with an open heart and an open mind. And with that, I think we're ready to introduce the first speaker and allow a story to be told that should help us all be invited into a place that we never had a ticket to before.
All right, this is going to be amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm excited. I'm also really focused on what these great speakers have to say. So let's introduce the first speaker. Tasha Edwards is a certified integrative health coach, personal trainer, and group fitness instructor with degrees in sociology and counseling. Tasha focuses on accessibility, inclusiveness, connection, and mindset in her health and wellness work. She's a Chicago native, wife and mother of two, and loves reading, writing, dancing, and Starbucks lattes. Tasha's been just an incredible friend for years. And I remember at one time, I just asked her at the last second, I said, Tasha, could you help me teach at an Atlanta Mania. And, you know, I think I only really gave her like 2 weeks notice or something like that. And she's got so much going on in her life, but she dropped what she was doing and she was there, and that's absolutely amazing. So without further ado, Tasha, open it up for us and take the stage.
Thank you, Sergeant Ken. Thank you, Stephanie. Hey, everybody. I'm a rambler when I'm emotional, so I'm setting my timer. I have been thinking about what I wanted to share with you, and what came to me was my mother. My mother always said in another life, she would have been a history teacher. And I was 8 years old the year she called me home from my after school program and made me watch Roots. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, Roots is a mini series created by Alex Haley in the 70s about his family's transition from slavery to the now. And that's kind of heavy for an 8-year-old. My mother talked a lot about the civil rights movement. She was born in Sunflower, Mississippi. And while she moved to Chicago at 2, my grandmother and her siblings spent, you know, a lot of their adulthood down there. My father is from Selma, Alabama, which is where the March to Montgomery across the Edmund Pettus Bridge took place. March 7th, 1964, Bloody Sunday, when walkers were brutally attacked. It was one of the first sights that people had of racism, because you can ignore things that aren't in your face. My mother graduated from college, got her associate's degree when I was in the 2nd grade. My mother is the oldest of 9 children and became an adult sooner than she needed to be, because my grandmother and her siblings had to drop out of school and work in the fields in a segregated Jim Crow South. I was raised in a Black neighborhood in a housing project in Chicago. And while I went to magnet schools my entire life, majority of them were Black. I went to a historically Black university, Tennessee State in Nashville. And going into the work world as an early 20-year-old was a slap in the face. There were things that I had only heard but didn't understand. Things that I had to take and not know how to express. And I didn't realize how deep and traumatic these things could be until I called my grandmother and said, I had an argument with my boss today. My boss was a white man who is one of the best supervisors, bosses I've ever had in my life. We just had a disagreement, and my grandmother lost it because she was afraid that I was going to be reprimanded, because all my grandmother can think about is what would have happened in the South if a Black woman had spoken to a white man without even knowing what I was saying. In 2004, I moved to Madison, Alabama, which is Huntsville, for those of you that are familiar with Huntsville, NASA, and I took a job making $5.15 an hour selling gym memberships. And people didn't know anything about me. They didn't know my history. They didn't know my degrees. My husband had lost his job. We lost our house. I was in a car accident, and Huntsville was starting over for us. And I used to wear locks. And instead of people recognizing me as a person, I was often called that Black girl with the funny hair. I came home one day and cut all of my hair out of frustration, not wanting to be labeled, wanting to be seen, and I wasn't. And it was a fight. This is the first time I've ever lived in a completely dominated white space. My children have oftentimes been the only Black child in their class, 1 or 2. My son had ADHD, and so it was easy to choose him as the problem. And as I see these things unfold in front of my face, all I can think about is the first time my son came home from the mall screaming and yelling because there was an argument at the mall. White kids were sent home. Black kids were put in a box until their parents came to pick them up. He was 14. My son recently moved out. He's almost 23. Last week, he was here late doing his laundry on last Sunday, and I was afraid for him to go home. I was afraid for him to be on the road to go home. My son has a white girlfriend who lives in the back rows, and I have had to explain to her, I don't dislike you. I'm afraid. I'm afraid for him. My hope in all of this is that my children are a couple of generations removed, and this is the world they've grown up in. I've told people we needed both Martin and Malcolm. I see a lot of people posting Martin Luther King about peaceful protests, but a lot of times peaceful protests didn't always make things happen. People had to tear things up. Martin Luther King was a peacemaker, and they killed him. And so to navigate this space between my children gives me the opportunity to give them their voice and to see the world as it could be and let their voices be heard and not try to edit them to make it sound like what I was told, kind of keeping them in a Black child, young person's place. Their place is among the change makers. And I feel like that's for us too. That's why we're having this conversation. All of us may have things in our families that contributed to how we see race, how we feel about race. And now that it's in front of our face, you cannot unsee it. My hope is that by us being in this conversation, that we begin to see each other as humans. Understand that suffering may be universal, but the experience of it may be different. To be bold to challenge ourselves, even if what we've known our entire life is what's holding us down, even if it's the people in our family that they believe a certain way, you don't have to, and I don't have to. My grandmother's 85 now. She still wants to see Black doctors. It's hard to pull that Mississippi out of her because that's what she knows. My parents live 2 blocks over from Emmett Till Boulevard. If you're not familiar with Emmett Till, it's an amazing story to look up. Heartbreaking, but it was the beginning of the civil rights movement. These are the spaces of my life. And so I share that with you to say, not only am I here to share my experience, I'm here to listen to yours. I am here to see the humanness in you and ask that you see the humanness in me. And this is the time, for such a time as this, it is now time to change the narrative of this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so meaningful to hear your story. We so appreciate you. One thing that you said and over the last week was how much you're doing in your community. And it really impressed upon me personally that I can do something too in mine. And I appreciate what you're doing, Tasha. Thank you for tonight. And thank you for what you're doing in your own community as well. And for our fitness community too, the greater fitness community.
Thank you.
And I'm really going to call out to everyone that's on this call right now or watching on Facebook Live. Please start to put your heartfelt messages into this chat bar right now, and please lift Tasha. The amount of courage that it took her to even come forward to to express that raw and real and resolute perspective of what's going on in her life. But we need to lift her up and also know that what she's doing is she's trying to open us up to conversation, because we live in a world right now where all we want is clicks and comments. And she's trying to encourage a conversation. So please get on that chat bar, start this right away, and let's continue this dialogue. Speaker number 2. Gary Henry is a father and of 7 children and 10 grandchildren. He's a CanFit Pro, that's Canadian Fitness Professionals, for those of you who are not familiar, and I love CanFit Pro. He's a CanFit Pro certified personal trainer and minister of sports. I'm sure he's going to tell you a little bit about that, with a great deal of experience working in geriatrics. He's been involved in fitness for over 20 years. He's a founder of Fit for the Call Fitness Ministry. Gary has trained elite athletes in Canada and in the USA. He leads a youth boot camp at church and the local community center, and he has a special heart for kids who have parents missing in their lives. His mission is to educate and elevate people through connection, candor, and commitment. His purpose is to provide people an immense amount of hope. So Gary, wave at me so I know where you're at. Okay, good. So I can spotlight your video and unmute you. Unmute yourself in the bottom left of your bar there. And
Gotcha.
Here, thanks. Take the stage.
Thank you, Sergeant Ken. Thank you, Stephanie, for this awesome opportunity, and everybody watching today. Before I go forward about me, when I thought about this opportunity of a lifetime, and as I thought about things, a song came to me, and that song was, "We shall overcome, we shall overcome." And I couldn't get it out of my mind. I couldn't get it out of my heart. So I kind of researched it, only to come on Dr. Martin Luther King. And that rocked me. And I'll tell you why it rocked me. Because it's 52 years ago that Martin Luther King died on April 4th, 1968. I was born 1968, April 1st. And I said, God, could it be that this man that ran his race and didn't have a chance to finish it, are you asking me to finish this race? Are you asking me to gather the people? I believe so. I know, and I believe so. So it's my call to reach out to people, even though they may not believe it, but I believe it, and that's what's important. Because I believe that we all have something special that only we can do, that many other people cannot do. So we can't look at what people think, but we got to believe in ourselves to go forward and do what we know we're meant to do in our heart. So Dr. Martin Luther King, I remember growing up, I had a big poster, and it always stuck with me. And that thing, one of his sayings, the time is always right to do right. The time is always right to do right. Yes, he was a peacemaker, and he got murdered. And that was terrible. As I look back at the past to fuel my future, I can't think about the way things were done back then. I have to think about how can I do things now? How can, not I gotta start with me, but we. How do we come together and look out for one another? That is special. If we can do that, we can get further. Some of us can go ahead fast. Some of us may move slow, but we got to look out for one another. That's what's important right here, right now. Growing up as a child, In 1970, my family immigrated, left Trinidad to Montreal, Canada. And growing up as a child, I didn't really notice much thing as a kid. You just want to play. And, I grew up with Asians, Polish, Greek, German, French, of course, Montreal's French. But what was interesting, I started hearing things that were negative. That old saying, sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt you. That is a lie from the pit of hell. And I'll tell you why. Because some of the stuff that those people said to me at that time, I still remembered it in my 20s and 30s, and even now. I still remember it. And it was nasty. It was damn nasty. And my first real hit with racism in grade school, I can name his name, Mario Como. What I remember Mario Como. Mario Como is the man that we were swimming, we were learning to swim. And I think we were leaving, if I remember correctly. We had to line up we're in the start the poolside, and I so happened to be, I didn't know, but I was right by the deep end. And what did Mario Como do? Mario Como pushed me in the deep end. I went under the water. The only thing I knew was to dog paddle. That's how I learned to swim. Mario Como pushed me in the deep end. I can never forget him because I have a scar on my forehead. Mario Como. Mario Como. It was a winter time. In the schoolyard, we're playing. Mario Como pushes me from behind. Boom! I hit my head on the pole. Boom! I hit my head on the floor, my forehead on the ground. Spit open my forehead. Mario Como. What would I do if I saw Mario Como today? My God, I'd be so happy to see him, but I won't do anything. I just want to say, Mario, I'm still here. So I faced that, grade school. Now, further on now, I'm in my teens. There's people making fun of me. They used to call me lips because I got big lips. And they used to make all kinds of jokes about me. Look at that black boy. His lips look like catcher's. His lip look like catcher glove. I'm like, what the heck? So I faced all that. I took all that. And I said, you know what, man? One of these days, back then I was a reactor. I was a reactor. I was ready to do something if I had to. Because I wasn't taking it. But somehow I got through it. In high school now, I had a teacher, Mr. Harding. I remember Mr. Harding kept me after school one day. And I didn't do anything wrong, at least I thought so. He said, I have to have a good talk with you, and he did. He kept me for 2 hours. And he told me, listen, young man, Mr. Harding is a black man. He goes, you're a black man. And the reason why you're here is because you're black. And I want you to work harder than everybody else. I was always told black people have to work harder. Well, I was tired of hearing that. Because I thought in a way that, how come you're not talking to the white people like that? So in a way, there was a separation, and I got to understand this separation even more and more as time went on. But the gist of the whole matter is that I did have white friends back then. And I still have white friends today, even more so. But it's a totally different kind of relationship, I want to call it, not an acquaintance. And the crazy thing is, my old friends from grade school, we are reunited in a funny kind of way. So we can talk about certain things that went on that they didn't know about me and I didn't know about them. But as we continue to walk this path of life, we have to find a way to listen and understand one another. Understanding is so key. I'm approachable. My family is so mixed, it's not funny. My daughter-in-law is Asian, there's Indian. My auntie, God rest her soul, she passed away, she's from Newfoundland. I got mixed cousins. I got white people in my family. But guess what? It's all about love. If we can love encapsulates everything. But if we want to go alone on some tirade about hate, and no, we can't do that. Thinking will cause our minds to start shrinking. We got to get it right. That's the importance of life right now. Right now, it's 2020. We cannot think about things that were done in the 60s, the 1800s, the 1700s, the 1900s. We can't think like that. We have to renew our mind. We have to renew our mind and look out for one another. Because we actually need each other right now. It's 2020. The whole world is going through the same thing. We are on a reset button. We're on a reset, but I believe that God is giving us a chance to get it right. To get it right. But are we going to listen as children, like I speak to our children, like I speak to my grandchildren? Can you get it right? It's time to die to self. Yes, I'm a black man. Who cares? I do care. I care about my sisters, and I celebrate my sisters that are on this panel today. I love them. I love you all. Because I got one life to live. I'm going to live it with love, on purpose. My whole goal is to impact every single soul I come in contact with. And I want my kids to do the same, my grandchildren to do the same. It's so important. What kind of legacy am I going to leave my kids and their kids? What are we going to leave for them? We got to put our heart in it. It's so important. And you know, the crazy thing about coming up to 2020, at the beginning of, I want to say the middle of 2019, sorry. God was speaking to me. I didn't fully understand it. But he was speaking to me about unity. And he said, unity in the community brings opportunity. Unity in the community brings opportunity. Can you imagine what that means when we all come together? Oh my God, what a beautiful thing that's going to make. That we get to help one another finish the race. I also say this, I used to run track and I could run fast. And if you were to run right now, and I'll beat you to the line, I won't cross the line. Why? Because I'm going to stop and I'm going to spur you to come to the line, and we'll do so forth with the other people. A common day we're going to cross together. We need to flip the script. That's what we got to do, man. That's how we win the game. But here's the other thing. I like to say I'm a big kid. God speaks to me in ways that are kind of weird, but I don't care because I get it. That's why I love my grandchildren, because I still learn from them and they learn from me. So there's a message that I got several months ago. And I said, okay, when am I ever going to preach this message? Who's ever going to let me speak about this message? Well, guess what? Today's the day. Well, I believe that we all have special gifts. each and every one of us, white, black, yellow, green, whatever the case may be. I don't care where you're from, everybody has a special gift. So, get this. You ready for this? I hope you're ready for this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Everybody should be familiar with this. It's called the Crayola message. What's the Crayola message? The Crayola message is so beautiful. It's actually unity in a community to bring the opportunity. There's no racism in the Crayola because every color fits in. Every color in here can make something beautiful when it comes together. And imagine there's 10 in here. Left hand, right hand. God has a sense of humor. So what are you and I going to do going forward? Take this as a challenge. Look down to lift up. If you can do that, you're going to go forward. And the other thing is this. Yeah, I worked out. I lift a lot of weight, but guess what? The heaviest thing that I've lifted is this Bible, because that's heavy. After that is lifting somebody's soul who has felt hopeless, and now we come in to bring hope at a time like this. Help other people endure, in capital letters. This is the time that is right to do right. We have to be the game changers. We have to be the ones to stand up, unite, and ignite like never ever before. It's our time to do it, and do it now on purpose. Look out for your brother. Look out for your sister. Look out for those who are less fortunate than you. And please, I don't know if you heard it before. I'm going to say it again. I don't like to call the people who are, they call seniors or elderly or old. I don't. I call them gold and bold with stories untold. Again, why do I say that? Because many of these people have stories that can add, and if you stop and you listen to that story, guess what? You're going to be adding hours or days or years to their life. Because they get excited, you stir something in their heart, and they feel exuberated. But then you take that, like I have, and still carry it with me today. And I'm sharing it now. Celebrate them. They've toiled the ground. They've worked so hard and nobody wants to listen anymore. They treat them like they're invisible. How dare humanity? My grandmother raised me. If it was not for her, I would not be who I am today. I think about that woman. I mention her name every single day. If I said there's a day that I didn't think about her, I'd be lying. People, the world says give peace a chance. All the old songs from back in the day, people all over the world, join hands, join the love train. What are, like, have we forgotten how to love? It's a reset. It's 2020, and we're already 6 months in. And look what has happened in this world. But you and I have the opportunity to come together in unity in every single community. By the grace of God, lean on him. He's the only one. This is what we need. Pray without delay as you stay. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, there are a couple things that really stood out for me. Of course, it's unity in the community brings opportunity. And one thing that I've gotten out of the conversations over the last week, and help me if I get this wrong, but it is to appreciate both the differences and the things that makes us all fit in. So it's what makes us stand out and also what makes us fit in too. So, and then what you said, the gold and bold with stories untold. What I really like that and how it mixes well with what Tasha just said is because when you ask and then you wait to get the answer, you're going to hear the gold in people that have yet to be told. And when you listen, you can gain so much.
Oh, it's priceless. You see, that kind of stuff. I tell people you can watch a movie, you can read a book, but the authentic coming out of the so-called horse's mouth, my God, even today, I said, hello, mama, how you doing? And she's down there and I'm bending down. How you doing down there?
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, you looking down at me? I said, no, I'm looking up at you.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, come on, man. That's called joy unspeakable.
Yes. It's but I what I like about that isn't just for her, it's for those in your community. It's stopping.
Yeah.
It's stopping. You know what Heidi Baker says? Stopping for the one.
That's right there. The one.
Stopping for the one. And when
It's
you
above the one.
That's right.
It's above the one. And I mean, like, you see, like, this is, how can I put this into context? This is more than I ever imagined in my life. I knew that this moment is a special moment in my life. And I mean it wholeheartedly when I looked that when Martin Luther King passed away, April 68, 3 days after my birthday, I'm like, okay, something's up here. And I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to honor him and his legacy. And a matter of fact, what I wanted to say is this. Martin Luther King had a dream. We now have a reality.
That's right. That's right. I also, is there anything else, Gary? That seems like a perfect segue.
That's all right.
Thank you.
And we shall overcome. Together.
Thank you, Gary.
Together.
Tasha, would you like to add your 2 cents on anything that was said? Just don't forget to unmute.
Oh, I did. I think all experiences are worth listening to, you know. Racism is a huge umbrella, but you experience it in different places in different ways, directly or indirectly. And so I just believe that these conversations that we're having, just the awareness when people are like, wow, I would have never imagined, you know. And so now we can begin to have empathy for each other. And again, I just think that creates more space for change.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day, Tasha. If the world had more empathy and practiced more empathy, we would probably not see such a lack of humanity in the world today.
Exactly. Because nobody's looking for sympathy.
No.
You know what I mean? Nobody's looking for sympathy. But if you can't hear me, if you can only hear me while thinking of your own agenda and how you're going to fight back against what I said, then nobody ever really hears anyone, and there's never a resolution. You know, again, we are, it's such a time as this, we're in a position now to create the change, even if it starts with the person in the mirror, you know, and that's hard, but it's doable.
Thank you so much, Tasha. Thank you.
We ready to introduce the next speaker?
I think we are. Oh, this is going so well. Thank you, Tasha.
Thank you, Tasha.
Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Speaker number 3. Jen Hall is a former professional dancer that performed with superstars like Beyonce and Jay-Z. She switched her focus to dance and fitness education, teaching in the kinesiology department at Georgia State University and presenting dance-based fitness and business sessions all over the world. I know this because I call her some of my travel family. Jen's mission is to help businesses compete in the digital world through her company called Talk to Jen. So same thing, I'm gonna go to gallery view and wave, there she is, and I'm gonna spotlight you, and you go ahead and take the stage.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. And it's funny, I said to Tasha right when she finished, well, we could have just ended it there. And then when Gary finished, I thought, well, we could have just ended it there. But it's obvious to me that everyone has amazing points about this situation. Now, I'm a completely different person than what Gary and Tasha have expressed in so many ways. Often Tasha is the only Black person in the room, and often I'm the only white person in the room. So it's just a interesting polar opposite. But really what I want to talk about is the little piece of my heart that walks around outside of my body, which is my little brown son, who is 16. And I shouldn't say little because he's not little, and he's almost 17. He is a skateboarder. His name's Christian. And in Atlanta, which is where we live, I live one suburb outside of the city. So you can take a train from the suburb I live in into the city, or all the way down to the airport. And on the way into the city, there is a skate park. And often he and his friends there are two mixed race kids. One of them is first generation American and Jamaican. Like there's just a hodgepodge of different kids. They all go down and skateboard. Well, obviously, since COVID set in, not only were the skate parks closed, the train was closed, and we're not taking them down there. So they were not able to go. Pretty much as soon as the city reopened, everything started happening in terms of the protests. Now, if you understood my background, little tiny glimpse. So as a professional hip hop dancer, there were tours where 4,000 people auditioned. And I was one of 8 chosen, and the only white person anywhere. And that is not, to me, something unusual or different, because I grew up, my mom is the definition of a hippie. She thinks that flower fairies fly in the trees, y'all. Like, she's definitely out there, but in an amazing way. So I grew up backstage at a ballet theater where Mr. Barry and Mr. Patrick were married, and that's just how it was. And Travis, who I never think of as Travis the Black dancer, although everybody at the Georgia Ballet did, that should tell you something. Travis jumped over my head one day. I thought he was the most amazing human being I'd ever seen. So I didn't have any concept that when I went into a Black person's space where they were all Black people together, that maybe they didn't want me there. So that was a really big lesson for me. But even bigger than that was, I dealt with that for like 2 seconds. My Black friends, my Black family, my Black son, they deal with that every day of their lives, risking whether or not they're wanted in that space. So along those lines, as soon as the city opened, the protests began. And my son, who's 16, and if you ask him, he'll tell you he's Black, was like, Mom, I'm going to the protests. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can't tell him no, because I completely understand why he wants to go to the protests. At the same time, he's on a skateboard, and a lot of the people who are causing problems in the very beginning were taking their skateboards and smashing cop cars. So I knew they would be targets, which meant, guess who's going to all the protests? Me. Guess who's filming everything just to make sure everything's okay because I'm scared to death? Me. Guess who's having a darn near heart attack every time he walks out of the house? Like one day he took the train downtown and I couldn't be there for an hour. Like I had to be at work, and I had a whole hour where I'm just looking at the pin on the iPhone, watching him, like just making sure he's okay. That's insane. No one should feel that way. I didn't feel that way 3 months ago. I mean, I was concerned that they would be in the wrong place at the wrong time because it is a big city. Atlanta's a very big city. Chris is street smart. All of his friends are street smart. Because I had the opportunity to work at Georgia State, he knows downtown very well. He knows where to go, where not to go. But he also knows how to act around police because I had to teach him that. That's insane. You shouldn't have to teach your child how to act around police. They should be able to act like they act to any other adult. Polite, respectful. But you can't say nothing or do nothing because you risk being hurt. Now, understand me when I say, I know not all police are bad. We need those people. They jump in front of bullets for us. I get it. But there are enough bad that I'm worried for my son's safety. continually. And that's not something that anyone else should have to feel. And again, this is probably to some degree temporary, because at some point something will change. But unless more people talk about the need for change, nothing will happen. Because how many times in the past, however many years, have we heard of something crazy going on in the news? And you only hear the big things. You don't hear about my son being arrested when he was 14 and they let the white kid and the white girl go. And I live in a suburb, y'all, not downtown Atlanta. You don't hear about things like that. My friend Shar is Romanian, and she has a different skin tone than the rest of us. And when she was younger, she had a little accent. And the police would do the same thing to her because she was an immigrant. They would keep her and send her friends home. It's definitely entrenched in culture, no matter where you are. I just happen to live in Georgia. Now, Atlanta's amazing. We have the Martin Luther King Center here. There's an amazing amount of tolerance. Yesterday and the day before when we were down there, people like Josh Holland, if you're watching, all of the gay pride marchers were marching with the Black Lives Matters people. We were breaking out in like dances because the police wouldn't let us go, but so far, so we just dance. Like, that is how it should be. But now there's a curfew. So I, like Steve, I'm in Atlanta, so it's 8:48 right now. Like Steve, ever since we started this webinar, I've heard nothing but sirens, 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 because they're out getting protesters who are peacefully, y'all, they're literally walking down the sidewalks with poster boards that say Black Lives Matter, wearing Black Lives shirts. They're not even chanting. And they're getting pulled off the street. For what? I don't even live in the city of Atlanta. That's insane. My point here is, why do we keep creating the cycle and going through the cycle? And the answer is, Gary said, what we really need is more love for each other. And he gave us a couple of examples: to listen to our elders, to act when they need us, to make them feel needed and wanted. But I'm going to ask you guys, because I see so many people who I recognize, and I know you're fitness leaders. Some of you are group fitness instructor, department managers, even if you're on furlough. Sorry about that, right? Even if you're working like 4 hours a week like me, it's fun times. I want to challenge you right now. Now, I'm not trying to brag because, again, I don't think of my instructors as anything but like wonderful, amazing friends, right? Like, I don't know all of them very well. I've met them all at least once, but you know, the ones that teach once a week at like 5 a.m. on Saturday, I don't know them very well, you know, unless I've known them for years and recruited them. I reached out to all the ones who are not white. And I said, are you okay? Like, no, I mean, in the text I wrote, are you okay? No, I mean, like, are you really okay? Like, I'm standing with you. I'm here for you, whatever I can do. And these people haven't seen me since March, whatever, because we hadn't started classes back. And do you know, 14 of those 16 people said, Jen, I have a full-time job and I work at 87 gyms or however many gyms, and no one else has asked me that. That's how you can show love. Reach out to those people. Reach out to anyone you think might be affected by this. My friends who are Hispanic or of Mexican origin, because I'm originally from Los Angeles, they're really struggling right now too. Like, some of them have the perception, and especially if they're immigrants or first generation American, like, this sounds crazy, but there's like a color class system to go with Gary's lovely crowns he had there, but it was like white, black, and then brown. So they're feeling some type of way too. So reach out to your non-white everybody's and ask them, how are you? Like, no, really, how are you? And then use your influence, y'all. All of you are influencers. If you've been on my Instagram page lately, it's kind of hot at the comments, just be careful. But you will see what kind of things you can do to help. Like, no one realizes the disparity in how many, that's not a word, I just made it up, but that's okay. Disparity in how many non-white presenters there are versus presenters of any color in the fitness industry, unless they're presenters of any color. Because they're trying harder than us. I promise. Ask them. They'll shake their heads yes. They're trying harder because that's what they have had to do. And it's the only the ones who are like pushed 200,000 times, a million, zillion times and drive people crazy who actually get on the circuit. And they're more talented and more qualified than some of the people who look like me. So it's in every single industry. I want to share just one more tiny piece with you because I want to bring it back to my brown son. 2 things about him. One, I don't know how to address very well. One is he never feels black enough or he never feels white enough. And I have some 100% black friends who say I'm intelligent and educated and black people don't like me because I act white. So that's another phenomena that you guys should consider. Like, what is white? What is black? Aren't we all just human? Like, why is that a characteristic of someone? Why did Barack Obama have to be well-spoken? I mean, that's ridiculous. You know, I'm trying to tell you some of the things we say as white people, it's silly. You can't say you're colorblind. I'll tell you why you're not colorblind. You're not afraid the police are going to shoot you when you get pulled over, unless you are a person of color. You're pretty sure they're going to ask for your license and registration. Pretty sure. That is the definition of not colorblind. You can't be, not if we're going to change this. So I ask you, my son said when he was 8, they learned about slavery in school. And that was the first time he felt like he was different from all the other kids because the teachers never qualified what slave owners were. They were just slave traders. They weren't qualified as murderers. Reprehensible by our society standards today. People who weren't qualified to lead, but our society didn't know any better, like they thought that worth was flat. You know, things that really should be brought out from the time they're teeny tiny so that the kids of color don't start in a place where they feel less than. And the kids who are white don't start in a place where they feel greater than. And the moment that happens, it will be systematically better. So any influence you have in your industry, whatever industry you're in, take that step and show love. Do it actively. Reach out to people, text them, call them, Facebook them, Instagram them. Do what you can within your sphere of influence to promote people that you know tell the truth. People that you know are qualified, people that you know are passionate, and people that you know really want to make a difference because they'll help you. We can't do it alone. Everyone here knows we're better together. And that's the last thing I'm going to say is we as humans are better together.
Thanks, Jen, so much. There's a few things that you said. You talked about showing love. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you did to show love, one of the things I really liked on your Facebook page is talking about Tasha's combined 1,000 hours of Pilates and yoga training.
She is like, okay, so I go to every convention in the universe, every convention. I think I haven't presented at Idea China, maybe? That might be the one, right? And there's one more in Asia because Asia Fit's like, don't go there. They're scary. They won't pay you. Tasha is 100,000 times more qualified than me. 100,000 times. Why am I there? Maybe because I danced with Beyonce. But what if it was Tasha who danced with Beyonce? Would she be there or would it be me? Just a question, just a question.
I would never, ever downgrade your experience, but I will say that Tasha's experience is pretty outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but my point is in bringing that up is it was a wonderful example of how you were actively showing love for someone else.
Yeah.
You did and you continue to do what you can. Another thing I really appreciate is that you're out dancing in the protest. I can barely dance in my own home, but I appreciate the fact that you are taking it's just like taking the things that you can do and bringing them out to the world. You're saying, reaching out to others and asking, are you really okay? Using your influence to and using your voice to spread love. and to show love and to honor people. Those are all things that you've done well.
The last thing I meant to add a little thing, because you said Tasha's name again, because Tasha does teach classes in her community to people that can't afford to pay her. If you are a person who comes across equipment that you're not going to use and you don't have the opportunity to do that in your community, reach out to Tasha or someone else you know and see if they can use that equipment. That was the last thing I wanted to say. Sorry, I forgot that.
Thank you so much. That's a really good plug. Tasha, do you want to say anything about that program before we transition to our next speaker?
It is a program in process. I do realize that teaching bar and yoga and Pilates is a privileged sort of thing. You have to be of a certain income to be able to afford to pay, $200 or so a month or $30 or $40 a class. I'm not sure if I wasn't teaching that I could afford it. And so what I have tried to do is create what's called backpack Pilates or yoga, and to be able to take equipment to people. I can't carry reformers on my back, but I can take a little mini speaker and what I have and allow people to get as much of an experience as they can, because everybody needs Pilates. It really shouldn't be about money, but Pilates and yoga is a high price game right now. And so that is my goal, to get to children, to get to shelters, to even just get to people who we may think can afford it and can't. I just want to get to the people. So
real quick, if they want to join your class, how can they do that? Or find out more, donate, whatever it is?
I'm an Instagram junkie. So the best way to find me is I'll put it in the chat at hiphealthychick, or emailing me at hiphealthychick@gmail.com. People have been amazing to me in the past week. I have been able to put money towards another Black yoga teacher getting certified. So I am overwhelmed and sharing the love and super thankful.
Okay, you said hip like HIP like Paul?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so it's not hit, it's hip. Oh, it's in the comment. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, wonderful. So please, if that is something that you can contribute toward or something that interests you, please reach out directly to Tasha. And Ken's going to introduce our next speaker.
And our final speaker, Dr. Eurydice Stanley, Lieutenant Colonel, retired, and a dear friend of mine, is an international motivational speaker, award-winning author, instructor, and an entrepreneur. She served nearly 28 years in several components of the Army, primarily conducting leadership, human relations, and diversity training for military and civilian leaders. She is a co-author of The Worst First Day, Bullied While Desegregating Central High, with civil rights icon Elizabeth Eckford of the Little Rock Nine and daughter Grace Stanley. The authors use this book to teach important civil rights history and combat bullying in schools. She can be contacted at www.dreurydice.com. And I'm gonna, as always, try and find her on Gallery View. And there she is. I'm gonna spotlight your video. It's so good to see you, Doctor.
So wonderful to see you, my friend. So we've heard a lot of things tonight, and I just want to take a step back, because when I was asked to participate, one of the things that was a concern was, how did we get here? And one of the things that we really have to be cognizant of is the thoughts that go through our mind, and where did they come from? And that's called socialization. The socialization process is how you become who you are. And you often learn that from your family, because it is transmitted within the first 7 years of your life. So you might say, my parents never said anything bad to me about an African-American person. Well, that's true. Perhaps they didn't. But while they were holding your hand, did they ever bring you in closer when an African American was walking by? Was there a message conveyed to you as a child that there was something to fear? What I do and what others in my field do is help people peel back the layers to see the messages and the messaging that they received growing up so that they can start to make decisions for themselves and not necessarily be caught in something that was programmed 30, 40, 50 years ago. So it's really important that we stop to think, what are my perspectives regarding race and racism? Because for many, I'm sure that many are, I don't know the faith of the parties on this call, but I know that there are many who are Christians, and that thought concept can be, well, I can't be a racist because Jesus wasn't a racist and I'm like Jesus. Well, unfortunately, that's not necessarily how that works. And so the concept is, if I want to be like Christ, if I'm Jewish, if I'm Christian, if whatever faith, and the thought process is, I can't be like Christ because I harbor another belief. That's what we have to start peeling the layers back. And I'm sorry, someone was just calling me. I put my phone on mute. But let's think about it from another perspective. A comment was made that things have happened in the past and we don't need to think about it. This is 2020. Well, it is 2020. However, there are a lot of things that have happened in the past that still have not been acknowledged, recognized, or addressed so that we can move forward. And the book that I wrote with Elizabeth Eckford of the Little Rock Nine, in that book, this is the worst first day. In that book, she says, if we have honestly acknowledged our painful but shared past, then we can have reconciliation. Then we can have reconciliation. It does not happen when you just say, oh, get over it. Don't be so sensitive. Because oftentimes, the person who is saying, don't be so sensitive, really isn't even aware of the depth of what has actually happened. And that's what we need to do. And that's how, by teaching history, by knowing history, history promotes awareness and empathy. I need to know what it meant when Emmett Till was bludgeoned. You know, Tasha brought up Emmett Till earlier. He was absolutely defaced in ways that just don't even register. And his mother, when she received his body, made sure that his casket was left open so that others would see what happened to her baby. And oftentimes, whenever you hear of an African-American man being lynched, those references will go to Emmett Till. There will be a reference regarding Emmett Till. So it's important to Google Emmett Till. It's important. It's painful to see what happened to him and to know that the people who did that to him received no repercussions whatsoever. but it's also a reality. And it's also what we've been facing. And it's also part of the reason why many African Americans are upset, are mad, are frustrated, are furious. This is why you have seen marches for weeks, because to have yet another person's life taken, to sit there and watch that video for 8 minutes and 47 seconds, and to see it happen again in such a cavalier fashion. There has to be a time when it is said enough is enough. And many African Americans have said that time has come and passed. Enough was enough with every single person who was killed. But we're grateful, many are grateful, that the response has taken to the streets like this, even during a pandemic. Think about that. Even during a pandemic, people are taking to the streets because it's just that important. And some might think that this is the first time that the military was called out on American soil. No, it wasn't. I mean, here are the Little Rock Nine being escorted by the 101st because President Eisenhower called in the 101st to protect nine students who were just trying to go to school. They just wanted an equal opportunity. And that's all you're hearing from protesters, the peaceful protesters that are out there now. They want an equal opportunity. And so you have to ask yourself, if I want to bring about change, how am I helping to ensure that there's equal opportunity? How am I contributing to helping create policies that will ensure that we have inclusive, diverse and inclusive workforces? Or am I adding to the glass ceiling that's in an organization? Every person can have an impact. And if you think that's not true, think about it this way. We wouldn't know about George Floyd if someone didn't hold up their cell phone and videotape his murder. So you have to remember, every person, every act can make a difference. What are you doing? What can you do to make a difference? What you're doing right now is something that you can do, because you are listening to different opinions, different views, opening up and expanding your mindset. Perhaps this is something you would have never thought about doing before. Perhaps now you want to know, and it's that wanting that's going to lead to a richer, more robust communication with someone else. You know, there are so many researchers and theorists that you can read and really understand some of the things that have been happening and the impact that they have. All it takes is time and energy. If you put the energy out there, I promise you it's going to come back. Now, when I was in high school, you may wonder how I got into this type of field and how I started working in equal opportunity. I did this in the military. I conducted human relations training for senior leaders in the military. But when I was in high school, my mother moved to a city, a very small town, I should say, that had no African Americans in their school, period. And I will never forget, one of my classmates had a dog, a black dog that she called the N-word. That was the dog's name. And they taught the dog to hate African Americans. And as I was sitting next to her, all the dog kept doing was growling, and she kept slapping the dog on the nose, saying, "Nig, shut up, nig, shut up, nig, shut up." And that's socialization. That dog was taught and trained and expected to follow what he was doing. The difference comes when he gets to know Eurydice and knows that she's a wonderful person and there's no reason for him to be growling at her. At that same school, in my high school yearbook, my face was placed on a monkey. And for those of you that are unaware, that is a stereotype that's commonly used for African Americans. And I will never forget the high school yearbook teacher coming to me in tears because they had gotten that page past her without her seeing it. And I knew exactly who did it, and I knew her issues, of course, were racially motivated. But I always focused on what could I do to provide training? What could I do to provide education? What can I do to change the plane? And now you can ask yourself, when someone is making a joke that is inappropriate, do you say something, or do you sit there and just quietly listen to it because you don't want to cause any problems, you don't want to ruffle any feathers? It is that moment that we need you to start thinking about and to start speaking up and saying, no, it is not okay. It is not okay for you to call your dog the N-word. It's not okay for you to put this girl on a monkey in the yearbook. It's not okay to say racially motivated jokes or characterizations or anything of that sort. You have to use your voice. And I know that when you use your voice and when you use it for power and you use it for good, you're going to make a difference. You're going to make a difference. So I just want to encourage you, and I want to remind you, it is important to know your history. This is American history. This is not civil rights history. This is not Black history. It is American history, because America was built on the backs of African Americans. And you want to make sure that you learn and understand other people's experiences, because it can lead to their expectations when they're interacting with you. So it's important to know where they're coming from. And as I get to know where you're coming from, it can also help me provide you grace, because I may know that you didn't necessarily mean what you said the way that you said it. And I'm going to talk to you about it so that you could know how someone might see that as offensive, and you go from there. And that's how we have the type of conversations that will help us, as this series is called Care Over Conflict, move forward and build that care and empathy and hope for one another. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stanley. We appreciate you. A few things to note. I want to kind of tie something that you said in with something that Gary said is, what can I do? You said, what can I do? And that's kind of the question is posed to everybody. What can you do? And one thing that Gary said earlier, and I'm also I have more to say about what you've said, Dr. Stanley, but I wanted to add this in what Gary said, is he acted in the opposite spirit in which things have come to him. And so when things were ugly, he acted in peace. And I think that's how change is made, is what is one thing that you can do? So acting in being the peacemaker to your friends and family, being the person that uses your voice. And one thing, Dr. Stanley, that you told me is when I got nervous about saying the wrong thing, you said, don't overthink it.
Yes.
And what I realized is that there's a good chance that I could fall right on my rear end and not say the right thing and be seen for not saying the right thing. And what I appreciated is the grace that you're providing, because when we open the dialogue, that grace is there because we've given each other room to speak and to tell our, like you said, rich and robust stories. And it does take time and energy. It does take us doing the next right thing of being that peacemaker. Ken?
I'm just so moved by what everyone said tonight, and I'm reminded of, during the development meetings that we had, you said something that really moved me. You said it's okay not to know what's going on, but it's not okay not to care.
Right.
And that was the main reason why we're really trying to come together to have this dialogue, so that we are not conforming to the patterns of this world, but we're being transformed into something better than we were before. Because when you conform, you work from the outside in, but when you transform, you work from the inside out. And total transformation requires a heart change. I think this is the perfect moment where we can address all of the panel speakers. If we've got people that want to do a little Q&A section, something we never had time to do in the other webinars. Yeah. So folks, for those of you that are on the live call right now, now's your chance to use that chat bar. I'm going to ask Steve to unmute himself too to help me manage this. And Joseph too, if you see something, unmute yourself. If you see something that's going on in Facebook Live, please, let's use the chat bar. We're going to go ahead and still be masters of ceremonies of sorts. And if there's a question you want to address to a specific speaker or just to the panel, the panelists themselves, and I'll offer it to them to who wants to answer it. But please ask those questions now, because.
And if you're nervous, send it straight to us, and then we won't say who it came from. But
yeah.
And it doesn't. Then now's your time. Don't be like Dr. Stanley told me. Don't overthink it. Just ask. If you have a question, ask now.
Yes.
If you have something to say, go ahead and say it to us, and we'll say it.
In the meantime, I'd like to take everybody back over some very impactful things that I pulled out here while people formulate their questions, if that's all right, Stephanie and Ken?
Yes,
please.
Definitely.
So, I mean, obviously, look, I have my stories to tell and they'd be very interesting and they're related, but I refuse to make this about me in any way, shape, or form. So what I'm going to do is walk through some of the moments that I believe we should take away in my heart and mind I'm taking away. I'm going to go all the way back to Tasha, to the beginning. My mother became a woman earlier than she should have, and the circumstances behind that, and how that is something that we should all think about when people have to grow up more quickly than they should because they don't have the luxury of staying children and staying young and being protected and being secure and being comfortable. That's something that impacted me. I have a family strain that something similar happened with that, and that struck me. I was often called blank, and this, I think, for my lighter skinned friends to sort of latch on to, we tend to use pronouns for groups that can minimize or detach, and I know we've seen this from our current leader, and it's been dogged by psychologists, and we've talked about this in the media for the last couple of years. Those blank, the blank, it doesn't matter what is behind the blank, whether that's a religion or a color or a group of any kind. It's dehumanizing when we use pronouns in front, and that's something to be aware of. We need both Martin and Malcolm. I like that very much. I'm standing in New York City, and I would be far more active physically if I didn't have an infant and a very nervous wife, but I did get to join a vigil the other night, and we have the perfect mixture of people who are slightly beyond the law and beyond the curfew here, and people who are perfectly silent in their protest and legal and wonderful, and standing outside of Mr. de Blasio's home, asking him for better, asking him for more, asking the NYPD for more, since Eric Garner and many other things here. It hits us pretty hard. Their voices belong to among the change makers. This is for the next generation, and being inclusive in who becomes part of our leadership. And that's about acting on a local level, and that's about elections, and about going out of your way to hand out a flyer or to talk to your friend about who's important in your zip code. And that's something we do on the very local level, and I've been involved in that for 2 decades now, and that's really important. The hope is to be bold, to challenge ourselves, and to realize that we don't have to believe the things that our family believed. You should not be held responsible, not responsible, for what your family and your forebearers did or believed, but that doesn't mean you should be ignorant or turn a blind eye to it either. Having the knowledge of what happened, understanding American history, as Dr. Jurdis has said, and then acting upon that in a constructive way to open the conversation is really, really important. It's very important. And that's what I pulled out of there. And then when it came to Gary, there are some of these. I believe that we all have something special. Gary, so do I, pal. So do we all. That's why we started this. That's why Ken and Stephanie are the people they are, and that's why we are where we are right now. And you must believe in ourselves to do it. The time is always right to do right, and that's one of my favorite things I've heard in a long time. There's no wrong time to do right. It may be inconvenient to do right, sure, but I've been inconvenienced an awful lot of times then, and that's okay. It's okay to be inconvenienced, to do the right thing. Not me, but we. And I think that's the crux of this entire conversation, is that it's we. There is no such thing as you're not involved, I'm not involved, well, it doesn't affect me. Yeah, it does, and it affects you on a systemic level, whether you like it or not. There is no way to not be part of a side or not have an opinion in this conversation or this conflict that we're in. Stacey Gordon, throw me to the wolves and I will end up leading the pack. I mean, profound and powerful. I love that. And that was a piggyback right off of Gary's story. Throw me to the wolves and I'll end up leading the pack. And Gary stated, back then I was a reactor. He was talking about the disparaging remarks that were made about his appearance and about the way he looked, the way he moved. As we walk this path of life, we must find a way to listen to one another and be approachable. It's all about love, which sparked Rosita and Jennifer Teo and Luli and Regina to all come in on needing each other, being absolutely right. 2020 is all about love. Stacey Gordon, where's love? That's a really important moment. And then love on purpose, as in it is an act. Being full of love is an act. It's a choice. It's not an automatic built-in behavior, and it's not always the easiest choice, especially when you've gone through some stuff that would make you feel less loved. You choosing love makes you more powerful, and that's something that we can all learn from. Unity in the community brings opportunity. I mean, I just capitalized the word unity in all 3 of those words, because that's a huge winner. I will definitely say that again. Every color fits in the rainbow. The rainbow would be incomplete without. There's no exclusion. That's we're all in it together. Look down to lift up. Reach down and help people up. That's like our very similar to our logo of hope. Help everyone and other people endure. You see someone at the top of a mountain raising someone up. It's just, there are so many beautiful takeaways, and I want to make sure that I give them all their due. Jen Hall, I had to teach my son how to act around police. No parent should have to do that. You're absolutely right. That shouldn't be an activity. That shouldn't be a home discussion. We shouldn't have to teach each other how to act differently around law enforcement in order to stay safe, no matter what we look like or how we walk, what we're carrying. It's show love by reaching out to those you think might be effective and ask, are you okay? That's Jen's call to action. And it's a beautiful call to action because you can't be wrong for caring. How can that be wrong? You know, just make sure you frame it in a way and then you actually listen to the answer, which is something Tasha and Gary and several other people said. Be part of the conversation to actually listen to the side of the conversation, not to prepare your next response to your monologue. Things like where we fit, how the terms we use. He's never black enough. He's never white enough. Why does this person have to be well-spoken to have that level of attention? These are things that we have to challenge in our own mind and change our perspective on. And then we are, socialization, how you become who you are. Thank you, doctor. I appreciate that nugget. I'm going to walk away with that and keep that in my mind. And I'm going to think about and challenge my own socialization and think about all the conversations that were imparted to me between the years 0 and 7, apparently our transmission years, our formative years. And that's something to think about as a father who's got becoming a 10-month-old, and what kind of books he reads, what kind of toys he has, and all those things for us new parents, something to think about. We must acknowledge, recognize, and address our painful and shared past, and then we can have reconciliation. History promotes both awareness and empathy. Beautiful. How are you helping to bring about equal opportunity and change? It's nice to listen, but do you have a plan? Believe me, there are resources here. Stacey Gordon has put some of them directly in the chat. Click on Jen Hall or Tasha Edwards' stream on Instagram. Go to Hip Healthy Chick or talk to Jen Hall, and you're not going to have any trouble finding action moments, ways to be helpful. And if you don't know what direction to go, just go in any direction that equates to love and change. We must speak up and say no. It is not okay when hearing racially motivated characterizations and jokes. And this is something that we all have to recognize, that and this has been in movies, and it's obviously been used by organized crime and been used by people on every street corner. But really simply, like, you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem, but there is no neutrality at this point. We've come too far in 2020 for there to be no side. So if you're allowing someone to make someone else feel a certain way in front of you, and you absolve yourself of the responsibility of saying something out loud, even if it puts you in a difficult conversation or conflict, you're then part of the problem from where I stand. This is incredible. And that is everything that I have that I think were the most valuable moments that I'm going to walk away with. And now Sergeant Ken and Stephanie are going to field some questions.
Yeah, so that was a beautiful recap. I appreciate that, Stephen. And so we're going to address this to any of the panelists. And so, because we have one of the audience members that said, what's something helpful that I can say and post that will feel and communicate that I'm anti-racism and pro-change? So if any panelist wants to unmute themselves and answer that, please let's take the time to do that right now.
May I answer that?
I'd love for you to answer that, Tasha. Your spotlight, go.
Or part of it. And please take this with all sincerity and heart and love and light. When someone is hurting, it doesn't matter what you say. If it's coming from your heart, go with that. We are in the space where people are saying things because they feel like they need to. And when it's not on your spirit and you feel forced, or you're saying my words, that doesn't help us. What helps me is for you to be you. And how you express that, I can feel your heart from that. Say I'm anti-racist if that's how you feel. But again, as we said time and time again, don't overthink it. Someone's going to always have something to say about what you say. Someone's going to love it. Someone's going to hate it. But put your heart in it and really tune in and say what your heart wants to say. And I guarantee you, it will reach the hearts of those you are trying to speak to.
Well, I love that answer. Do any of the other panelists want to unmute themselves? Doctor, do you want to go ahead and chime in on that?
Yes, it's one of the most important things is for the person who is posting inappropriate comments to know that you don't accept those comments. And it can be as simple as, please don't post this on my page. You know, I disagree. It's important for people to hear your voice and to hear you say that you don't agree, because if they don't, they will think that you agree. Silence can be seen as agreement. And I also just want to say that reconciliation quote, I just want to tell you that's not mine. That's Elizabeth Eckford's, the person that I wrote the book with. That's her quote. I just wanted to clear that up.
Awesome, awesome. Another audience member that I know and love, I love this guy. He says he suggests that posting resources to help protesters, like the links to donate to bail efforts, and to let your friends and family members who are going to protest know that you're only a phone call away. Post links to support Black-owned businesses in your area. These are great suggestions. Do any of the panelists want to also address these suggestions from one of our audience members?
Or offer suggestions.
No, I don't want to be the spokesperson, but
No, that's what it's all about.
it is, I have challenged people to put money where their mouth is. You know, so in the link of my profile on Instagram, there was a list going around about different resources. And I love that people want to read, but we need people on the ground. When people are going to jail for what they believe in and they're afraid, you know, we have to let them know we have their back, you know. My charities of choice were people that I knew. It was one in Inglewood in Chicago, because that's where my parents met. That's where my grandmother lived my whole life. And so people connect to what resonates with them. If I suggested to a friend, if mental health is your thing, find a mental health advocacy group for African Americans and donate to there. Let your heart guide you. But I'm gonna tell you, any reposting that we're getting helps to amplify our voice when we felt like we've been silenced, and it's meaningful. And so I thank you for whatever you've posted. Again, what resonates with you, you know your audience, get the information to the people.
Jen, I'm gonna spotlight you too, because since you've been to quite a few protests with your son, what do you have to add to those suggestions?
I would say I love Dr. Stanley's point about making sure that people know you disagree with them if you do. But I will also say, don't fall down the rabbit hole. There are some people whose minds you cannot change, whose hearts you cannot change. No matter how hard you try, you'll spend your whole entire day. Just ask my friend Jay, who's over there in the red shirt. I'm sure he'll wave. You can really spend your entire life like going back and forth with someone who's not going to listen. So make sure that you know your audience. And I will say, I'm close to that 5,000 friend mark on Facebook, just because I've been on there since the beginning of time. And there's only been 2 people that were just really awful. So sometimes that's going to happen. My profile is also public. So one of those people is not my friend, so to speak. But I just wanted to say, be careful not to waste your life, but make sure your voice is heard. And exactly what Dr. Stanley said about, I don't agree with this. One particular thing I shared with Steve privately, someone we both know who's in the fitness industry, posted something she thought was funny. And I was the only person in the fitness industry to go on there and say, this is not funny and it's disgusting. And her answer was, block me. So that tells you something, right? She's not willing to listen. So that's something that I just want to warn you is going to happen. You'll lose followers, you'll gain followers. Don't look at your numbers. It's quality, not quantity.
Yeah, I love that, Jen, because, you know, John C. Maxwell said last month. He says, a crisis doesn't make us, it reveals us. Okay.
Mhm.
I think we have time for one more question, and and it's really just so we're going to pick the question out of it and have any of the panelists also address this again.
And Gary, we haven't heard from you.
And Gary, we want to bring you out, but I'm going to also quote Gary on something that he said earlier. But so this person, one of our audience members says she's really been attacked for saying that all lives matter. I mean, to say that everyone is important. God loves everyone. I think the word matters and is decisive. It implies significance and insignificance. Can't we try to say it? I support Black lives because I believe all lives matter. It's a tough one, but who wants to? Okay, doctor, you're spotlighted. Go for it. And Tasha, you're next.
It's really important when people say all lives matter. I know that many are coming from a place in their heart that's saying, everybody matters to me. Everyone is important to me. And that is understood, and that is what we want. However, all lives are not being threatened right now. It's African American lives that are being threatened and being killed. And the spotlight is on Black lives to say, this particular group of people has been placed in jail for longer periods of time for the same offense as a white person. They're being treated disparately within the system. They're not receiving the same types of opportunities regarding jobs and employment. All of those things matter. And until you pay attention to it, it's going to be very easy to just wave a wand and ignore it. And that's why it's important to know history. If I didn't know history, if I didn't know that 9 students dealt with they were beaten up every single day at school because the soldiers could not go into the classrooms, and that's where they were beaten up. Sometimes they were beaten up and, messed up in front of the soldiers because some of those soldiers didn't want to be there. But this was to implement the Brown versus Board of Education decision, which took place in 1954. They desegregated in 1957, 3 years later, and there were still other schools that didn't desegregate until the 60s. So even though that was a decision that came from the Supreme Court, there was still such backlash that people weren't following the decision. And that's why it's really important to know how, even though a judgment came through, the action did not support it. And that's what you have to be able to focus on in organizations. Perhaps your boss is saying, we will not tolerate discrimination. However, people are doing something completely different. And that's where your voice is needed to make sure that people know what's going on. So yes, I understand your heart, but you are not helping Black lives when you say all lives matter. It just muddles the conversation.
Any other panelists want to piggyback that one? That was amazing, Doctor. Thank you.
I think Gary's unmuting.
Yep,
Go
I'm
ahead.
muted. So I was looking at my son, and he has this Black Lives Matter shirt. And I said, what does that mean to you? It goes exactly what it says, Dad. But the thing is this, I hope, my prayer is this, that I don't want a revolt. I want things to be done in a peaceful manner, because I believe that we're making some progress right now because we're being heard. We're lifting our voice. But I don't want to take a step back. I want us to go forward. And we have to be willing to call out one another at the same time to say things like, hey man, wisdom is better than strength. Because there's always a repercussion in our actions. So if we can think before we act, before we speak, I think we can go further along this path. I'm not saying I'm perfect. When I walk out that door, it's moment by moment by moment. Because things could happen so fast. But to recover from it, if it's something negative, chances are you may recover or you may not. So going forward with this delicate time, yes, Black Lives Matter. And if I could say every soul matters. So again, if we could love on purpose and just peace, give hope a chance.
Gary, I love what you also said earlier too, because having this dialogue is helping us to really start to understand the heart of the matter, so that we can also apply care in what's going on. And so you said something about because it's now with all of these actions and in this project, using this platform to get this information out, to share these stories and strategies. You said earlier about building a legacy. And we've had this conversation in Toronto several times, because a legacy is not what you leave for someone, it's what you leave inside of someone.
Right, that's right.
That is where our changes come.
Yes.
It's not really leading from the mind, it's leading from the heart. If you want to win battles in life, use your heart.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And that's something I spoke to my grandsons on the weekend. They came in from Montreal. And so with their little bodies, we had a good conversation. And the last time I said to them, what's the last thing Grandpa told you when he was with you a couple months ago? And that one word was love, love, love. Love all the time. And if there's something I want to leave within my grandchildren, is the opportunity to spread that love, man. But I tell them, hey, you may go through troubles. Like their parents tell them, you may encounter things because of the color of your skin. And they have to, unfortunately, we have to speak that to them. And there was a mistake with my last daughter. Didn't really speak to her about color too much until the day when it was a hot day and one of the girls in the neighborhood has a pool and say, hey, you guys come over to my pool, but Julia can't come because she's going to dirty the pool because she's black. So that's not an easy thing. So now we have to speak up and we have to speak the truth to our youth and let them know, because if we don't tell them, the world is going to tell them.
Love it, love it. We got one question that we wanted to squeeze in here. I know I already said that we had one last question, but this is an important one I think the panel could really address.
Okay, so here's the question. And panelists, if there's anything else you want to say in addition to answering the question, feel free. We're going to wrap it.
Yeah, this will be our closing.
This is the final thing. So this question to me is a great question. So the question is, does the Black Lives Matter group want others to participate in the protest?
Ooh, that's good. Raise your hand if you want to take it. Tasha, I'm going to give it to you first. Spotlight, go.
I'm going to speak as, I can't speak because Black Lives Matter is a bigger entity. We need allies. If you're willing to get out there on the street with me, come get on the street with me. I do realize that it can feel a little kind of like this, like we don't want allies. But here's the thing, we're fighting from two different places. I may not be able to change or convince the people in your circle who are not Black, but you can. You can. These are the people that you're in contact with. Now it's up to you to change your circle and for you to be out there on the front lines marching together when we're saying peace. Yeah, come on. Allies are everything. And so if that's on your heart, and Jen was out there, and Jen probably would have been out there even if Chris hadn't been out there. We need allies. We need allies. We need all bodies on deck right now. So I think you're told, and it may be different from city to city, but I have not seen a city where everyone was not included.
So, Tasha, is there anything else that you want to say?
Stephanie, this is so emotional for me because I know we're talking about hope, but there's a part of me that's angry. There's a part of me that's angry. And there's the part of me that needs to heal again generationally. You know, some of these things are like in our cells, you know, and I am thankful for anyone who is willing to say, I don't get it. I don't agree. Can we talk? And so these are the type of forums that create spaces. And we need spaces. As angry as I am, my anger is not directed towards a person. And so I want to create the space to say, may I explain my anger to you so that you understand? Can you explain your misunderstanding to me? You know, that kind of thing. It's human connection, y'all. And I'm just thankful that you all asked me to be a part of this. It gave me a little bit of courage when I felt like I have sat back. Sometimes I've had to speak more than I would have liked to in the past week. And to just have a space where people say, okay, you're not trying to correct me. You're not trying to change me. You're saying, I hear you. You know, how do we meet at a neutral spot and begin to work on this thing? And so I much appreciation and gratitude for you all.
And we really appreciate your candor, your stories. Thank you so much, and your follow up and the tips. Thank you so much.
Glad to.
Any other panelists? Jen, do you want to have any closing statement? I'm going to spotlight you.
I would just say, in the community where I live, it's very, very diverse, but there's one corner, it's a main drag where I live. And my friend was on the phone and she started crying because there were a bunch of little white kids, like little elementary school white kids holding up Black Lives Matter on the street corner by their neighborhood, which is really super cool and speaks volumes. So yes, they want your help because some people only listen to people that look like them. So it's a good thing for you to be supportive. And it might be uncomfortable, but this situation calls for uncomfortable. All of you who are fitness trainers know that change doesn't come unless you get uncomfortable. All of you who are business coaches know often change doesn't come unless you're uncomfortable. So having a space to talk, like Tasha said, and not being afraid to be uncomfortable is what I would say. And also, I am honored beyond belief to be among this group of speakers, to be involved in Hope, period. But among this particular group is something amazing. And I really appreciate all of you and everything that you've said. And I hope the rest of you who are listening will follow these folks on social media, and maybe some of the other people that you see who are watching, because they have amazing things to say and amazing things you can repost. And that is all I have to say. Thanks, you guys.
Oh my goodness. And I loved how both Tasha said it in her way and Jen said it in her way about being uncomfortable in order to really feel like we have to be moved toward change. Because isn't it true in life that you have to really hate what's going on in order for you to actually have the heart to make action? And I mean, look, like when people get out of shape and they look in the mirror and they just go, man, I just hate the way I look right now. And that's what it takes sometimes for some people to actually get in front of you to make that change, to make those little tiny steps to equal what they really want to be in their life. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Quickly, I want to add, Panelists, would you please put in how we can follow you on social media?
Yeah, get on the chat bar,
in the
panelists, and
chat.
put it
And
in
so
there.
if anybody who's watching now live on Facebook, or you're watching in the future in a video, that'll be there.
And one last thing I wanted to piggyback on something Jen said earlier too. She said sometimes you're going to lose friends, sometimes you're going to gain them because you're taking a stand right here. And then you got to realize this: you cannot. We are beyond the point of living through external validation.
Yeah.
We need to live with internal value.
Yeah.
Not external validation. And so make that bold step and really voice what is right, even when you feel like your voice, you don't want to use it. Please use it. So we're doing the wrap up. Gary, you have any wrapping up statements?
Yes, I would like to say thank you to the ladies. I love you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'd like to say thank you to my fellow speakers, Jen, Doctor. It's been amazing. You guys have blessed me, and Sergeant Ken and Stephanie, thank you so much. And Speedball Steve, and Mission Control, Mr. Joseph himself, thank you for your help. It's been amazing. I look forward to the next episode going forward.
Yes, fantastic. And I see that someone asked what I was talking about earlier when I was closing up the statement with Jen. So yes, what I was saying is we are beyond the point of living through external validation. We need to live by internal value.
Yeah.
Live by internal value, not by external validation. Doctor, we're going to close it with you. I'm going to spotlight you. And I want to say something too. This is really personal for me because it took the pandemic for me to bring my buddy together here. And I want to tell you why. She knew it was a big step for her because she's modest about this, but she ran the Equal Opportunity and Diversity Conferences for the Army and Air National Guard. It was really sponsored by the Army, but the Air National Guard sent their people as well. And she called on me years ago, and I said, hey, have you looked at me? Do you know who I am? Because I didn't know her yet. And she says, no, but I know who you are. And that point on, I was able to speak for her 4 times at the diversity conference, and I learned so much from the cultural awareness briefings and the religious briefings, and it was just an amazing experience. But what was best of all, that in the whole time that she was managing in this, I never got to see her speak until tonight. Thank you. God bless you. And please wrap it up for us.
Well, I just want to say I'm so honored that you called, and I'm grateful anytime that we can talk and really just start to know one another's heart. That's what's really important. But I just want to caution you, be willing to do the work. People are frustrated now because so many are just saying, get over it. And, well, I didn't do that. I didn't own any slaves. No, you didn't. But get to know me. Get to know what's happening to me. Get to know that my son, when he came home the other day, he was supposed to be home at 2:00. He got home at 2:12. And by the time he got home, I was just a puddle, just scared out of my mind. And he is 15 years old, so he doesn't understand everything that's going on right now. And as a child, he, of course, sees himself as invincible, but I know he's not. And I know that there are some real threats out there that he has got to be aware of so that he can stay safe. And for someone who does not have to worry about their child experiencing the same thing, for someone who does not ever have to think about their child being stopped by the police unnecessarily, and I say this as someone who personally was attacked by the police in 2000, and we took them to court. So I know what I'm talking about. Until you have that experience, until you know what that feels like, and I don't want anyone to know what that feels like, please don't diminish that. Don't diminish that thought, don't diminish that feeling for anyone else. Just make sure that you come to them with an open, earnest heart and just start a dialogue. And just allow that grace to go between the two of you where you're willing to listen. And if things don't work out, come back to it another day. Take some time and reflect on what was communicated and how perhaps the conversation went the other way. Because here's the thing, we're all in this together. And so we have got to listen to one another, and we've got to care about one another, and we've got to care about what happens to one another. So let's start doing that.
Yes, that's right. Caring about one another. Yes. Care over comfort, caring about each other.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to
thanks
our
for
panelists.
staying a little bit longer,
Yep.
everyone, because I know we've got people representing, I counted roughly 7 countries are on this call right now, and we have no idea what's going on Facebook Live, and I'll get with Joseph later. You're amazing, Joseph. And for those of you going to watch this recording later, remember, use this. Information doesn't create a revelation. You know, what happens is when you're impacted and you have a heart change, that's what creates the revelation. So let the information change you so that you can take actions to reduce fear and increase courage. So I'm going to ask everyone who's still on the call right now to go ahead and just give a virtual high five right now to everybody, because you did this. You came together with an open dialogue. We are so blessed to be a part of your journey. And let's continue this conversation online with each other. Please, all my speakers, put your contact information if you haven't already done so, because we want to make certain that we can reach out to you. And if we've got direct questions, it's something that's resonating on our heart, that we can do so. And
thank you to each individual for showing up here today.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Especially, I know there's some people in the Middle East had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
We have
to be a part
somebody
of this.
waving. Hi, we're
Yeah,
waving
that's
back at you.
Elio, it's you, man. It's from in the Middle East. Yeah. Also, I'm so happy for everybody.
And we have somebody over here waving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, from the United Arab Emirates. Yes, I remember. Oh, it's so good to see you. So, yeah, we've got that. So that makes 9 countries. Oh, my goodness, 9 countries on this call.
Wow.
So again, this does not mark the end. It marks the beginning of a journey of better awareness. And as Jen said, hashtag better together, we can make the change.
That's right.
So everyone, please take this information, use it, and let us know what you're thinking. Go to our Facebook page. We'll post the recording later. And go to our Facebook page and let us know what you thought of tonight's dialogue, and what your suggestions of how you're going to change in your circle moving forward. I think
that's a good place to.
That's a good place to end.
That's right.
God bless you all, folks. And for those of you who are in North America, have a great night. And those of you who are in the Middle East, happy early morning to you. Oh my goodness, have some Turkish coffee and get on it.
And also thank you to Joseph, and thank you to Steve too.
Yeah,
thank you
for helping us manage all this. And again, God bless you all, folks, and have a great, wonderful, wonderful life. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.